Hello and welcome back. I hope you have already seen the explanation video number 1. We are now into explanation video number 2 for the rest of this story, the paper Menagerie. You already know about this and this particular paper tiger, which is an integral part of the entire story. Okay, so now we stopped here. So dad and I stood. Now this is on her deathbed before she turns 40. The mother, dad and I stood one on each side of mom lying on the hospital bed. She was not yet even 40, but she looked much older. So obviously this whole emotional turmoil and angst had taken a toll on the mother. She was affected by the fact that the son was not even talking to her. She was affected by the fact that her son was ashamed of her, did not want to have anything to do with her or any part of the Chinese heritage that she represented, right? He even rejected the paper animals that he was so fond of when he was a child, right? So all this affects. So when people are emotionally troubled, it starts affecting their physical appearance. You would have seen with many people, when they are going through a low, when they're depressed, when they have going through emotional turbulence in their life, it starts affecting. They start losing weight, they lose their appetite, so they don't eat, so they start losing weight. They start looking very forlorn and very, very sad, right? Never be in your life, be that kind of a catalyst in anyone's life, a negative catalyst, that it starts affecting someone in a someone's health or emotional health. So never do that to anyone. For years she had refused to go to the doctor for the pain inside her that she said was no big deal. By the time an ambulance finally carried her in, she was suffering from cancer advanced stage and even surgery could not cure her. My mind was not in the room, it was in the middle of the on-campus recruiting season. Now this paragraph tells us a lot more about Jack. That his mother is on the deathbed, he's standing by her side, but he's not thinking about her last moments. He's not thinking about her last moments, he's thinking about his own prospective jobs, the fact that it was the recruiting season at his college, and I was focused on resumes, transcripts, and strategically constructed interview schedules so that he could get the job. I schemed about how to lie to the corporate recruiters. Now look at it again. He's not talking about, telling the truth and getting a job based on merit. He's thinking about how to say lies to those people who will recruit him from big firms and big companies most effectively, so that they would offer to buy me, so that they would offer to give him a fancy job. I understood intellectually. He understood. It's not as though he's a stupid fellow. He understood that it was terrible to think about all this while his mother lay dying on her deathbed in the hospital. He knew that it was not the right thing for him to do, to be thinking about all these extremely selfish points while his mother was there. He was not thinking about her even though he was standing by her side. And he was thinking about his job and about all that he would have to say in order to back that job. But that understanding didn't mean I could change how I felt. So that sense of anger hasn't gone. Even though he's much older, he still behaves like a petulant child, an immature child. She was conscious. Dad held her left hand with both of his own. He leaned down to kiss her forehead. He seemed weak and old in a way that startled me. So his wife, so there is a lot of great bonding between the father and the mother, which is so beautiful. That, the fact that she's not well, the fact that she's about to die has affected him in a very adverse manner, that he seemed weak and old, that it had started showing on him also. So that always happens in relationships where the two partners are extremely close. So when one partner is going through a low phase, it starts affecting the other person as well. They are not indifferent to the other person's state of mind or health. I realized that I knew almost as little about dad as I did about mom. And this is a confession. He thought, because with mother he had snapped his ties, and he always thought that he was on dad's side because he wanted to embrace his American lineage. But he realized that probably I don't know enough about dad, because the dad loves mom very much. He's not like the typical American dad who bought from a catalog a Chinese girl and exploited her in America. He didn't do that. He was actually a very loving husband, right? So he somehow feels a sense of disconnect even there. Mom smiled at him. I'm fine. She turned to me, still smiling. I know you have to go back to school. Her voice was very weak and it was difficult to hear her over the hum of machines hooked up to her in the hospital room. Go, don't worry about me. This is not a big deal. Just do well in school. So she's wishing him well. Unlike the son who is not at all bothered about. I reached out to touch her hand almost like a formality because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. Third rate fellow. Sorry. He thinks, oh, that's what I should be doing, so I will do this. Not because he wants to do it. I was relieved. I was already thinking about the flight back and the bright California sunshine. So, he's not, he's physically there, but mentally he's there somewhere else. She whispered something to dad. He nodded and left the room. And then she wants to have a private conversation with her son, Jack. If she was caught up in a fit of coughing and could not speak for some time, if I don't make it means if I don't survive, if I die, don't be too sad and hurt your health. Focus on your life. Just keep that box you have in the attic with you. And every year at Qingming, just take it out and think about me. I will be with you always. I hope that's the way it's pronounced. I haven't checked it. So she says that's her last wish. One, that when I'm gone, don't be too sad. Focus on your health. So she's also thinking about him. Second point, just do me a favor, one day in the year, on the occasion of Qingming, which is the Chinese festival for the dead, just take out those paper animals from the attic and think about me. I will be with you always. That whatever happens to you, wherever you are, even when I'm not there, I will be always with you. That song is there, no? तो जहाँ जहाँ रहेगा मेरा साया साथ होगा मेरा साया मेरा साया मेरा साया. It's a beautiful song. I think it's a Lata Mangeshkar song. So this is like the last wish of the mother. That, just do this for me. Focus on yourself and just once in a year, think about me. For a mother who is on her deathbed, to tell her son that at least once in a year, think about me. Just imagine the amount of pain and agony that she would have gone through to be having to say something like that. Just once in a year, think about me. Qingming was a Chinese festival for the dead. When I was very young, mom used to write a letter on Qingming to her dead parents back in China, telling them the good news about the past year of her life in America. So this is something this was a tradition on this particular festival for the dead, that you would write letters to your dead parents. She would read the letter out loud to me, and if I made a comment about something, she would write it down in the letter too. So she was making him also a part of the conversation she was having with her dead parents. Then she would fold the letter into a paper crane and release it facing west, that it would go across the Pacific into China. We would then watch as the crane flapped its crisp wings on its long journey west towards the Pacific, towards China, towards the graves of mom's family. So that was, I don't want to call it superstition. It's a very sweet kind of belief that you are still conversing with the dead, with your parents, even when they are not in this world anymore. It's a belief. You can say it's a belief. It had been many years since I last did that with her. I don't know anything about the Chinese calendar. I said, just rest, mom. Just keep the box with you and open it once in a while. Just open. She began to cough again. So he doesn't know anything about Chinese calendar. I don't know when that particular festival comes. It's okay, mom. I stroked her arm awkwardly. So he's not very comfortable in that physical space. She says this in Chinese. Let me just read it again. Mom loves you. Okay. An image from years ago flashed into my memory. Mom saying I and then putting her hand over her heart. So that's how she would always behave. All right, mom, stop talking. Dad came back and I said that I needed to get to the airport early because I didn't want to miss my flight. She died when my plane was somewhere over Nevada. So even before he had reached his destination, mom had reached her destination. So she was no more. When he was somewhere up there, not having his feet on the ground, she passed away. Hmm? Dad aged rapidly after mom died. So he aged rapidly means it had an effect on him, because when your life partner goes away like that, it does have an effect on the life partner, because, and especially if the marriage has been for many years, what happens is that you get used to each other's presence in a very loving way. There is a sense of comfort, there is a sense of understanding, uh, that you get used to life partners, and you would have seen your mom and dad like that. You get used to each other's presence so much. So when one partner goes away, it has a terrific and a terrible effect on the other person. The house was too big for him and had to be sold. My girlfriend Susan and I went to help him pack and clean the place. Susan found the shoebox in the attic, the paper Menagerie, hidden in the uninsulated darkness of the attic for so long, though it had become brittle, means it had become very hard, and the bright wrapping paper patterns had faded, so that it was not as colorful as it looked when they were originally made. I have never seen origami like this, Susan said. Your mom was an amazing artist. Please use this particular keyword also, to be called an amazing artist. The paper animals did not move. Perhaps whatever magic had animated them stopped when mom died. So, she used to put her breath into them. So she was the one who brought them to life. When the person who brought them to life was not alive anymore, obviously these animals were also not as alive. Or perhaps I had only imagined that these paper constructions were once alive. The memory of children could not be trusted. So now he's kind of giving a hint that how he felt at that stage when he was a child, maybe it cannot be trusted. A lot of it maybe had to do with his own imagination, which could not be trusted. The memory of children could not be trusted. So he had imagined a lot of things and told us about it, but he himself is not sure whether all that was the way he had thought it was. It was the first weekend in April, 2 years after mom's death. Susan was out of town on one of her endless trips as a management consultant, and I was home, lazily flipping through the TV channels. I paused at a documentary about sharks. Suddenly, I saw in my mind mom's hands as they folded and refolded tinfoil to make a shark for me while Lahu and I watched. A rustle. I looked up and saw that a ball of wrapping paper and torn tape was on the floor next to the bookshelf. I walked over to pick it up for the trash. So he thought it was a piece of trash, but it wasn't. The ball of paper shifted, unfurled itself, and I saw it was Lahu, who I had not thought about in a very long time. Rausa, mom must have put him back together after I had given up. He was smaller than I remembered, or maybe it was just that back then my fist was smaller. Okay, so he's looking at it with, fresh eyes. Susan had put the paper animals around her apartment as decoration because she thought his mom was an amazing artist. She probably left Lahu in a pretty hidden corner because he looked so shabby. I sat down on the floor because he was still taped and in a poor condition, brittle condition. I sat down on the floor and reached out a finger. Lahu's tail twitched and he pounced playfully. I laughed, stroking his back. Lahu purred under my hand. So, it still has some kind of life, or so he imagines. And they are paper animals, the art of origami. How have you been, old buddy? Lahu stopped playing. He got up, jumped with feline grace. Feline is the word associated with cats. Okay. Into my lap and proceeded to unfold himself. In my lap was a square of creased wrapping paper. The plain side up, it was filled with dense Chinese characters. So his mother had written a letter for him in Chinese on Lahu. So Lahu, in that sense, if you get a question about the significance of the paper tiger, you need to write about how it becomes a vehicle for the mother to communicate with the son, who is no longer on real talking terms when she was alive. So she has written a letter when she was alive, and he finds it 2 years after she has died. I had never learned to read Chinese, though he had learned French, but I knew the characters for son and they were at the top. So he realized that the letter was intended to be read by him, where you would expect them in a letter addressed to you, written in mom's awkward, childish handwriting. I went to the computer to check the internet. Today was Qingming. So today was a Chinese festival for the dead. I took the letter with me downtown where I knew the Chinese tour buses stopped. I stopped every tourist asking whether they could read Chinese. I had not spoken Chinese in so long that I wasn't sure if they understood. A young woman agreed to help. We sat down on a bench together and she read the letter to me aloud. The language that I had tried to forget for years came back and I felt the words sinking into me through my skin, through my bones until they squeezed tight around my heart. So the words had an impact on Jack. So now we will read the letter which was written by his mother. Son, we have not talked in a long time. You are so angry when I try to touch you that I am afraid. And I think maybe this pain I feel all the time now is something serious. So, I feel a lot of pain because, you don't talk to me at all. And you're always very angry even when I come to hug you. That's what was said earlier in the story also. So I decided to write to you. I'm going to write in the paper animals I made for you that you used to like so much in the past tense because now he had pushed them into the attic. The animals will stop moving when I stop breathing. Okay, so she's saying that they are an extension of me. The paper animals are an extension of me and they will stop moving when I die, when I stop breathing. But if I write to you with all my heart, I will leave a little of myself behind on this paper in these words. Then if you think of me on Qingming, when the spirits of the departed are allowed to visit their families, you will make the parts of myself I leave behind come alive too. So she's using the paper animal as a vehicle, as some kind of a medium of communication with Jack. The creatures I made for you will again leap and run and pounce, and maybe you will get to see these words again. So that's what has happened. So she believes that when she dies, when she stops breathing, the animals will stop moving. However, if you think of me on Qingming, when the spirits of the departed are allowed to visit their families, this is the belief that the spirits of the departed, those who are no more, are allowed to visit their families. You will make the parts of myself I leave behind come alive too. And then these ones, that's why Lahu moves, run and leap and pounce at that point in time. Because I have to write with all my heart, I need to write to you in Chinese. All this time, I still haven't told you the story of my life. When you were little, I always thought I would tell you the story when you were older, so you could understand. But somehow that chance never came up. It never came up that I would tell you my own life story. I was born in 1957 in Siglu village, Hebei province. Your grandparents were both from very poor peasant families. Let me just see whether that's written down. Yeah. Your grandparents were both from very poor peasant families. So they were from a poor agricultural background with few relatives. Only a few years after I was born, the Great Famine struck China, during which 30 million people died. The first memory I have of waking up was waking up to see my mother eating dirt. So you see, there is the Jack and mother relationship and the mother and her mother's relationship. That her mother is okay to eat dirt so that there is enough food for her daughter to eat, to leave the last bit of flour for me. Things got better after that. Siglu is famous for his Jeji paper craft, and my mother taught me how to make paper animals and give them life. So this is something which has been passed on from generation to generation. This was practical magic in the life of the village. We made paper birds, and what was the purpose? The paper birds to scare off the caterpillars, grasshoppers away from the fields, and the paper tigers to keep away the mice. For Chinese New Year, my friends and I made red paper dragons. I will never forget the sight of all those little dragons zooming across the sky overhead, holding up strings of exploding firecrackers to scare away all the bad memories of the past year. You would have loved it. So she's talking about the background, the history of the paper animals itself. Why were they made? Then came the Cultural Revolution in 1966. Neighbor turned on neighbor. That is, neighbors fought against neighbors and brothers against brothers. Someone remembered that my mother's brother, my uncle, had left for Hong Kong back in 1946, and I became a merchant there. Having a relative in Hong Kong means that you are a spy, right? and we had to be struggling, and we had to be struggled against in every way. Your poor grandmother, she couldn't take it, and she dies by suicide when she throws herself into a well. And then some boys with hunting muskets dragged your grandfather. So both her parents died. The father died because he was killed, and the grandmother, the mother of the mother, she killed herself by jumping into a well. And that's when she was just a 10-year-old, 1967. 10-year-old orphan. The only relative I had was in the uncle in Hong Kong. I snuck away one night and climbed into a freight train. Freight means something which is carrying goods. Down in Guangdong province, a few days later, some men caught me stealing food from a field. When they heard that I was trying to get to Hong Kong, they laughed. It's a lucky day. Our trade is to bring girls to Hong Kong. So they are indulging in what is called flesh trade, illegal trafficking, trafficking, illegal flesh trade or human trafficking, wherein they kind of get girls from China and they sell them to prospective buyers in Hong Kong, which is how she ended up in that bride market, the catalog. They hid me in the bottom of a truck along with other girls and smuggled us across the border. We were taken to a basement and told to stand up and look healthy and intelligent for the buyers. Families paid the warehouse a fee and came by to look us over and select one of us to adopt. They called that they were adopting, but they were actually purchasing. They were actually buying. The Chin family picked me to take care of their two boys. So that's when she was first sold. She was sold to the Chin family to take care of their two sons. Every morning at 4, she got up to prepare breakfast. I fed, and she was just a little over 10 years old. I did the laundry and swept the floors. I followed the boys around and did their bidding, means did whatever they asked her to do. At night, I was locked into a cupboard in the kitchen to sleep. If I was slow or did anything wrong, I was beaten. If the boys did anything wrong, then also she was the one who was beaten. And if she was caught trying to learn English, she was beaten up again. Why do you want to learn English? Mr. Chin asked. You want to go to the police, and if you go to the police, we will tell them that you are the one who is staying here illegally, and you will be the one who will be arrested by the police. They would love to have you in their prison. 6 years I lived like this. That is from 1967 to 1973. For 6 years, she lived like this with Mr. Chin's family in Hong Kong. One day, an old woman who sold fish to me in the morning market pulled me aside. I know girls like you. How old are you now? 16? One day, the man who owns you will get drunk and he will look at you and pull you to him, and you can't stop him. The wife will find out, and then you will think you really have gone to hell. You have to get out of this life. I know someone who can help. So she says that she's at risk by continuing to stay like this with a family out there. She told me about American men who wanted Asian wives. If I can cook, clean, and take care of my American husband, he will give me a good life. So since she already knew cooking, taking care of a family, she could be a good fit if she found an American husband. It was the only hope I had. So since she was leading an extremely tough, rough, and bad life, she thought this may offer her some kind of a hope to get out of that place, which is why when she meets her husband, prospective husband, the two words used for her was she was scared and hopeful, right? Now you understand why she was scared and hopeful. And that was how I got into the catalog with all those lies and met your father. It is not a very romantic story, but it is my story. In the suburbs of Connecticut, I was lonely. Your father was kind and gentle with me, and I was very grateful to him. But no one understood me, and I understood nothing because she did not fit in. She did not belong to that place. But then you were born. I was so happy when I looked into your face and I saw shades of my mother, my father, and myself. I lost my entire family, all of Siglu, everything I knew and loved. But there you were, and your face was proof that they were real. I had not made them up. They were not a figment of her imagination. They were real because he had the same kind of facial features of her parents, right? And of course, the mother. Now I had someone to talk to. I would teach you my language, and we could together remake a small piece of everything that I loved and lost in Siglu. When you said your first words to me in Chinese that had the same accent as my mother and me, I cried for hours. When I made the first dairy animals for you and you laughed, I felt there were no worries in the world. So her life was kind of complete, satisfied, because of her relationship with her little son. That he laughed when she made the first paper animals for him, the paper tiger that she made for him. That she thought that he looked like her and her mother and her father. So there was that connect that she was able to make with her, with all that she had lost back home in Siglu in Hebei province. You grew up a little and now you could even help your father and me talk to each other. Okay, because of the language, the father did not know Chinese, the mother did not know English, but he was like a translator because he knew both Chinese and English. I was really at home now. I finally found a good life. I wished my parents could be here so that I could cook for them and give them a good life too. So, she's someone who focuses a lot on the importance of parents, on the importance of family life, right? So she kind of misses her parents a lot and she says, I wish they were with me here and I could give them a good life, which was missing when they were back home in China, in Siglu. But my parents were no longer around. You know what the Chinese think is the saddest feeling in the world? It is for a child to finally grow the desire to take care of his parents, only to realize that they were long gone. Such a moving line. She says this is the worst thing to happen, that a stage comes when the child feels that now I can take care of my parents. But the parents are not there anymore, right? And that's why I say, it's very important to take care of your parents when they're there. Be nice to them, because there would come a moment when they would not be around and it would be too late. And then there would be only memories, right? So she says that it's for a child to finally grow the desire to take care of their child, like what she felt at that stage when she was writing the letter, but you realize that they were not there anymore. Son, I know that you do not like your Chinese eyes, which are my eyes. I know you do not like your Chinese hair, which is my hair. But can you understand how much joy your very existence brought to me? And can you understand how it felt when you stopped talking to me and won't let me talk to you in Chinese? I felt I was losing everything all over again, because she had lost everything when she had to go from Sigulu to Hong Kong. She lost everything. Her parents were not there. Her mother had killed herself. Her father was killed by people. She had lost everything. And then she kind of made a life all over again, made a family all over again with that little child, and who resembled her in terms of eyes, in terms of hair. And she could converse with him in Chinese. But one day when he stopped talking to her, she realized that she was losing everything all over again. So this points to the emotional trauma that she was kind of undergoing, what she felt, which she was now expressing to her son. Why won't you talk to me, son? The pain makes it hard to write, and she's almost kind of pleading with him, because she's written to him when, she's alive and when he can still read, but obviously he reads it after she's no more. And she's asking, why won't you talk to me, son? Why won't you talk to me? The young woman handed the paper back to me. I could not bear to look into her face. Without looking up, I asked her for help in tracing out the character for AI on the paper below mom's letter. I wrote the character again and again on the paper, intertwining my pen strokes with her words. So he's kind of writing love, 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 love in Chinese so much because he wants to kind of reach out to her and tell her that I love you, that it is important for me. So he's trying to convey that to her in a very desperate manner, but it's too late. But on the Chinese festival for the dead, he wants her to know that he's kind of remembering her. When they would be able to unite, the departed would be able to unite with their families as per the Chinese belief. The young woman reached out and I put a hand on my shoulder, because she obviously was also affected by the content of the letter. Then she got up and left, leaving me alone with my mother. Following the creases, I refolded the paper back into Lahore. I cradled him in the crook of my arm, and as he purred, we began the walk home. I hope you have understood the story. Please go through the notes. Please go through all the question and answers that I have put, and I think this story will be taken care of. I think I've done a very good job with the explanation video. Okay, thank you very much.